Friendly reminder, everyone, that we will be starting the Grimm Curriculum live streams in September.
We'll be announcing the date on the next episode of Extra Credit. Be sure to follow us on twitch.tv/The Grimm Curriculum so you don't miss out. Let's start the show.
Oh, hell yeah. How you doing?
I'm good. I was just telling Charlotte I rescued a random child outside.
It seems to keep happening to you.
The children, they find me.
All of a sudden they appear.
They just show up, like literally outside my house by themselves, and I have to find their parents.
That's such a sketchy experience, especially in these days and ages. I would feel like, on one hand, you're like, I feel responsibility to get you back to where you should be. And then also it's like, what if you're suddenly walking with a child that isn't yours and someone sees you and is like, hey, is that your child? And you're like, no, I don't know. I found it.
Right? I think they trust me because they know my dog.
Oh.
And so they're like, this lady is safe. And then I go over to their house. And the thing about, I don't want to get too far into this, but none of these children speak English. And I too was once a child who did not speak English. So I'm like, I get you, kid. I get you. But I wish I could just go to their parents and be like, let me tell you about this podcast that you should listen to about the dangers of the world.
That's my biggest thing, is if this keeps happening, this poor child, I do not want any sort of awfulness to befall them, but holy cow.
I know. But yeah, we high-fived and then found his mom, and all is well for now.
All is well in the end.
Keep an eye on your kids. Lock your doors, you guys.
Yes, please. Absolutely. My goodness.
Oh my goodness. All right. Speaking of
I don't know, all things grim and awful.
Yeah, let's start the show.
Yeah, I mean, hello everyone. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Dina. Welcome to the Grimm Curriculum.
Speaking of grim and awful.
Yeah, let's just start the show talking about missing children. Now it's time for Jodi Arias.
All right. Well, and also big thank you as always if you are watching from Patreon. Thank you. And if you're listening anywhere else in the world, we love you as well.
We really do. Thank you so much. We're here for part 2 of our Jodi Arias series. And I want to tell you something I found.
Oh, boy.
I found a website. I'm not going to name it because they don't need the attention.
Fair enough.
But it is one of many pro-Jodi websites.
Okay.
And I want Charlotte to read this little blurb that I've included that is on the front page.
Okay, here goes. Thank you for your ongoing support. We are Team Jodi, and we will be victorious in our quest for justice for Jodi.
That's all in caps.
Yeah, there's a lot of capital letters there. Make no mistake. Believe it, prepare for it, be part of it. SJ, Team Jodi, #winning. My God.
Mm-hmm. So the website is wild. It has like interviews with her where she's like, I don't know if I'm a cat person or a dog person.
No.
And they call it adorable articles. They have access to how to buy her art, which the majority of it is an auction with a starting bid of $1,000.
Oh my God.
They post a ton of photos of her looking all nice and stuff. And they also talk about how to donate money to her appeals, which has so far raised almost $105,000 friggin' dollars US.
Oh my God.
Yep.
We've talked about it before. I'm going to talk about it again. The Innocent Project. If you want to support someone that needs your support, go check out The Innocent Project. And let me tell you, Jodi Arias is not on their list.
And you're going to see why today.
Oh boy. Well, let's get into it. We did make a point of saying last week that it's very easy for people to forget the brutality of her crimes due to her appearance. The website Dina just mentioned really covers that.
Oh yeah, they don't talk about it like it's not a friggin', massacre that happened. They're like, oh, Jodi, she's innocent. Give her money, buy her art. She's so funny.
I mean, maybe there's not a whole lot they can do. Maybe we'll get into it later. But I am surprised that Travis Alexander's family haven't come for these guys to be like, take that shit down this minute.
Well, they're technically allowed to do it.
I guess so.
They're freedom of speech, man. They're allowed to post what they want on the internet.
Oh my God.
Today's episode is going to be a stark reminder of what this woman was capable of and the events that led to her horrific actions, which resulted in the death of Travis Alexander.
So far, we've gone through the early lives of Jodi Arias and Travis separately, and the differences between both of their upbringings. We also spoke about how they met and the early days of their relationship.
We left off with them taking things to the next level and having sex after Jodi's Mormon baptism.
Which Travis did. He was the one who baptized her, by the way.
Yeah, there's pictures of it too online. Mind you, as we discussed in great detail, they were already engaging in various forms of sexual activity before this.
Jodi had hoped that this would be something that would bring them closer together and make Travis fall in love with her. Unfortunately for her, this essentially sealed the deal for him and showed him that Jodi would never be the perfect Mormon wife that he wanted.
But that didn't stop them from having more sex.
Travis hosted a prepaid legal event in Mesa, Arizona about a month after this. He invited friends of his from various states to stay at his house. He did not originally invite Jodi. She heard about it and decided to invite herself to the event. Travis agreed but clarified that she was not able to stay at his house during this time.
She was outwardly very affectionate with him, often to the point of it getting pretty sexual. And this made Travis, obviously, incredibly uncomfortable. Remember, during this time, he's still really downplaying their relationship. And not only that, but all of his friends are Mormons.
Mhm.
And this isn't the typical group of like horny 20-year-olds. Like a lot of these guys think like you make out with a girl, it's like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll leave it at
Mhm.
that. So Jodi would literally follow him around throughout the house, sit on his lap, and even wait for him outside the bathroom whenever he wanted a little bit of
That's a
privacy.
nightmare for me.
I can't imagine. And consider it this way as well. Maybe you're hearing this and you're thinking, oh, she's like a puppy, like puppy love. She's like
Yeah.
so smitten with him. If a man was following me around as much as to stand outside of the bathroom,
Mhm.
oh, hell
No.
no. Oh my God. He was trying to constantly downplay her actions towards him in front of other people.
As we already know, Jodi was not the best listener. That day, she did not only show up at his house, she went around and told every single person there that the two of them were in a relationship. That is something that Travis desperately tried to backtrack.
And the thing is, they were essentially dating at this time. The problem for him was that she was making it seem like the whole thing was a lot more serious than it really was.
That night, Jodi curled up under his Christmas tree and fell asleep.
She, to me, is in this particular situation acting kind of like a toddler that won't leave you alone, in the sense that like poor mom wants to just go to the bathroom and have 5 minutes and the toddler's banging on the door and then the toddler is, oh my God, I love everybody, and then the toddler falls asleep beneath the Christmas tree. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not the behavior of a grown woman.
No!
Now you're all probably thinking to yourselves, well, that's kind of weird. And of course you're correct, dear listeners, because that is all weird as hell. That being said, we want to remind you that this was an event where almost everyone was Mormon and therefore no one was drinking alcohol. This included Jodi. So she's doing all this stone cold sober.
This isn't like she's had one too many coolers and she's, getting a little
Yeah,
tipsy
yeah,
and falling
yeah.
asleep under the tree. Like, girl is sober as hell.
Sober as a judge. This kind of behavior, surprisingly, didn't stop her from getting invited to events, or at least showing up to them. Like we mentioned last week, despite her behavior and how much Travis seemed to not like it, he still kept her around.
I don't want to at any point make it seem like we feel that the murder is Travis's fault.
Oh,
I
God,
want to
no,
really
yeah.
specify that. At the end of the day, in his mind, the relationship is just about sex.
Mm-hmm.
Sex that he happened to obviously enjoy. So for him, anytime she would do something crazy or his friends would be like, what is Jodi doing? He would still justify it to himself that he wanted her around. She would take that and essentially she would run with it. I don't want to defend her, but he wasn't exactly treating her that well to begin with.
Someone really needed to sit her down and be like, Jodi, what is going on here is not what you think is going on here.
And we'll see later someone does.
Oh, good,
Someone
good.
does. But like I said, Jodi don't listen.
Very true.
So in a lot of ways, he's leading her on and he doesn't realize this is not the kind of person you want to lead on.
No, and all that to say, it probably won't shock you guys that much that Travis's friends didn't really like Jodi either. They thought she was a bit much. Honestly, I would go a little further and say that she was a lot much.
Oh, yeah.
But they also noticed very quickly that she wasn't as serious about Mormonism as she had let on, which they found very off-putting.
They would all talk about Mormonism and have these like long conversations with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that she would say just wouldn't make sense. Or like if she did memorize something, it was just very specific, small portions.
Right.
It was clearly something she wasn't all in and they didn't like that.
And it was very obvious that she
Yes.
wasn't all in. Eventually, they would go on to warn Travis about her, saying that she could be potentially dangerous due to how crazy she was.
None of them took the relationship very seriously. They considered her more of a hookup than a girlfriend of his and assumed that things between them would eventually just fizzle out.
It didn't take long before Chris and Sky Hughes, who we talked about last week, became reluctant about having Jodi at their house. At one point, Sky even told Jodi that she just needed to move on with her life because Travis wasn't all that into her.
Ouch. But she needed to hear it.
It is ouch. And you know what? Sky, I would say, kind of brave standing up and being like, look,
Yeah.
Jodi, this isn't, you need to move
And
on.
she did it out of kindness. She wasn't like being mean. She wasn't trying to be rude
No.
or anything. She was just like, hey, like, this isn't okay. Because one thing that we didn't talk about last week is how Travis talked about Jodi. So he would
Hmm.
go to his friends and he wouldn't necessarily, like, they didn't all know that they were having sex. I'm sure that they kind of figured that they were,
Yeah.
but he'd go to them and be like, Jodi's so horny all the time. She's a nymphomaniac. She's all over me, blah, blah, blah. And his friends would just be like, that's pretty cool, bro.
Oh my God. And also, Travis, that's not true.
Yeah. Well, you know
Well,
what?
it is true, but she is not the only party of that story.
They're both horny. Let
Yeah,
them be horny. Just be on the same
100%.
page about it.
Absolutely. But this all just made her want to win him over even more. Jodi wrote herself a fake email saying that someone was stalking her. In this email, she specified that Travis didn't know what he had, and not only that he did not deserve her, but he was too far away to protect her if anything were to happen. She then showed that email to Travis.
Once again, Travis's friends saw through this, especially Sky. Sadly, he completely fell for it.
This is around the time that her behavior gets pretty scary.
Before we go any further, we want to remind you that Jodi lives approximately 500 kilometers away from Travis at this time.
Yeah, that's not just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
No.
She would show up at his house unannounced in the middle of the night on numerous occasions when his door was locked. Travis had a pet pug who had a doggy door. Jodi, seeing that the door was locked, would sneak into the house through said doggy door and crawl into Travis's bed. What the actual fuck is that?
We always say lock your doors, but I guess you should lock your doggy doors.
The amount of times we have to let Buffy in and out throughout the day,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. And you know what? We love her, so that is part of the sacrifice of having a furry buddy in your house, right?
Mm.
But Cody once suggested, he's like, we should get a doggy door when we finally own our own house. And I said, absolutely fucking not. Do you know why? Because what's his name?
Richard Ramirez.
Yes. And I was like, no. I was like, I am happy to get up 1,000 times to open that damn door if that's what it takes. We're not doing a doggy door.
Not to get too off topic, but you can get doggy doors that have a little like key that goes on their collar. So
I've
it's
heard
like a
it's like a
magnet and they can get it
contact
out.
kind of thing.
Yeah. But don't get a doggy door. I don't want that for you.
I just think of like the horror movie
Yeah.
where like the dog disappears and they're like, oh no, Spot ran away. And then you find his bloody collar being used by the murderer to get into the house.
Yeah.
So like, no, thank you.
Lock your doggy doors.
That too.
One evening when both Jodi and Travis were at the Hughes house, Sky took Travis aside. She told him very seriously that Jodi genuinely scared her. Sky stated that Jodi was overly obsessive and jealous, and even went as far as to say that her and Chris had talked about the fact that they wouldn't be surprised if one day they found out that Travis was dismembered in Jodi's fridge.
That is real.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, everyone's had shitty boyfriends or shitty girlfriends in the past that maybe your friends or your family didn't necessarily get along with. It happens. But when your friends are like sitting you down and being like, buddy, we fear for your life when you're with this person, please at least take it seriously.
At least consider, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do this for no reason.
Totally. And also, I might point out, like, obviously, relationship dynamics are very different for all people.
Yeah.
But Sky and her husband clearly very much care about Travis.
Of course.
Why would they try to just break someone up? Because in their mind, when they're first meeting Jodi, they're like, oh my God, this awesome woman has converted to our religion for Travis. She seems very serious. She seems very into this. She stayed at their house several times. And now they're getting to know her and they're like, buddy, there's something wrong here. You have to take that
Oh,
seriously.
absolutely.
Sky absolutely meant what she said too. She's seeing the red flags that Travis seemed to be missing and was legitimately afraid for her friend. And as she's saying this to Travis, they heard the door creak. Sky realized to her horror that Jodi had been on the other side of the door the entire time.
Ugh.
That just like made all the hair on the back of my
Mhm.
neck stand up. She quickly changed the subject in hopes that she hadn't heard what had been said.
Once they were sure Jodi had left, they continued their conversation, but they were wrong. Jodi hadn't gone anywhere, and she heard the entire thing. Travis opened the door, and there she was, wearing an absolutely furious look on her face.
This was the last time that Sky and Chris Hughes allowed her in their house. Travis kept hanging out with Jodi, but he began hiding it from his friends. That's the unfortunate thing that
Mhm.
happens sometimes when you confront someone. If they're not ready to hear it, it can pull them further away from
Yeah.
you, which is the opposite of what you really want to happen. But
And I think when they made the comment about him being dismembered in the fridge, they said that with a little bit of jest behind it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, they were worried about him, but they weren't like, "Look, dude, she's 100% gonna kill you. We're scared." They were just like, "Oh, she's crazy. What's she gonna do?"
totally. Not realizing that they'd almost prophesized what was about to
Because
happen.
keep in mind, Jodi Arias is a tiny woman.
Yeah, she's not very big.
She's just a little over 100 pounds. She's not very tall. She is very unassuming when it comes to how dangerous she really is.
Women don't usually commit murder in that fashion.
Mhm.
And literally because, you know, in a lot of cases, maybe they are smaller than their partners, right? And they maybe don't have that weight advantage or whatever. They're going to poison you. They're going to do something where it's not maybe as close contact
Yeah.
because it's safer for you that way.
Yeah. Since they were no longer allowed to meet at the Hughes house, Jodi and Travis began taking road trips together. Sometimes they'd go to various touristy locations, while other times they'd visit prepaid legal events. Travis would ignore her during the events, which would only increase her jealousy. And kind of messed up little fact, they went to very specific places because Travis had gotten a book called 100 Places to Visit Before You Die.
Oh my God.
Hmm.
That is eerie.
Yep.
During one of these road trips, Jodi looked through Travis's phone. She found numerous texts between him and other women. They got into a fight over this, and she told him that she clearly saw he wasn't ready for a relationship. She then broke up with him. Unexpected.
Right? It seems that Travis realized around this time that he wanted to settle down. He met a nice woman named Lisa through the Mormon church, and the two began dating.
The relationship between Jodi and Travis could have easily ended here, but it didn't. It didn't take long before Travis missed her. He began calling her, and the two engaged in phone sex despite the fact that he was in a relationship with Lisa.
It was around this time that Jody moved to Mesa, not far from Travis's house. Like, it was a few blocks away.
Oh, that's too much. And her being close meant that the two had the chance to be together again physically, and it didn't take long before they were sneaking off and having sex, as well as exchanging very explicit text messages between one another.
Despite how many times Travis tried to cut her off, she always reeled him back in with sex, which, of course, he enjoyed and oftentimes invited.
One day, Jody showed up at Travis's house and began looking through his window into his living room. She saw him and Lisa on the couch making out.
Keep in mind, Lisa is a Mormon woman. She's saving herself for marriage, and she's under the impression that Travis is kind of doing the same thing. Meanwhile, he is cheating on her and having raunchy sex with Jody any chance he gets.
I hate that.
Travis.
It didn't take long before Lisa realized that Travis was really not the guy for her, and the two eventually broke things off.
This led to Travis and Jody spending even more time together. Things between the two of them got even weirder. They'd go on road trips where they'd act like they were together, only for them to come home to him ignoring her. She continued to break into his house via the doggy door and go through his computer, or sometimes just move things around just enough for him to question if someone had been in his house.
Again, you guys, if you flipped the roles
Oh
here
my
and that was a
God.
man doing that to a
Yep.
woman, my God, how it would be looked at differently at the time of it happening.
I thought about that a lot during this entire kind of episode when I was working on it, because it's like, think about it if this was a man.
If this is a 200-pound, 6'2" man
Yeah.
breaking into your house, rearranging your shit, and going through your computer,
Mhm.
you'd call the police. You'd lose your mind.
Absolutely.
But I think because, like you say, she's small, she's unassuming, and he thinks she's harmless, it's allowed to continue.
He's seen that she has a temper. Like, he knows that, but he does not realize that that temper can turn physical.
Yes, very much
And
so.
even so, you're looking at, he wasn't like a huge guy by any means, but I'm sure he thought, like, if anything ever were to happen, like, what is she gonna do?
Yeah, I can handle it.
Yeah.
During all of this, Travis is still somewhat keeping Lisa on the side. He would continue to visit her, and on a few occasions while he was at her house, Jodi would show up and open the door just enough to set the alarm off. She would then run away. She also slashed both his and Lisa's tires, as well as sent vile emails to Lisa from a fake account.
I wouldn't put up with this. I'd be like, you know what, Travis?
No.
Sorry, bro.
Oh, if I was Lisa, I would be like, peace out. You and your strange girlfriend can peace out. Figure your shit out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As we mentioned before, Travis owned his own house. He was having trouble affording the ever-increasing mortgage rates, so he found 2 roommates to help out with the bills. Eventually, Lisa finally dumped him, and he went on dates with numerous Mormon women, including a lady named Mimi. After one of these dates, he came home to find that Jodi had broken in and was fast asleep in his bed.
I can't imagine going on a date with someone else and then coming into that.
No.
Her behavior continued to escalate around this time, and she began breaking into his house on a more regular basis. And rather than just moving things around, she started stealing shit.
It's the escalation. It's creeping. But it's a pot of water on the stove, and it is starting to boil.
100%.
She had heard through the prepaid legal circles that there was an upcoming trip to Cancun being planned. He asked her to go, but shortly after Mimi told him she was interested in going with him, he backtracked to Jodi and told her that he was just going to go alone.
Once again, we will remind you all that they are still having sex during this time.
Including phone sex, which, like we mentioned during part 1, would be played in court after his death. And that was because Jodi recorded everything without telling him. Now, there's one piece that stands out that I wanted to mention.
Oh, no. I just read ahead, and I'm so sorry that I did.
Yep. So, during one of these sessions, at the very end, so she's like, it's phone sex. You know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
She's
making. What are you wearing?
It was so much worse than that.
I know.
It's just like, you're such a dirty guy. I'm so horny for. It sounded like 2 teenagers, like who like don't know what sex is, talking to each other.
Oh my God.
That being said, at one point, Travis says to her, "You sound like a 12-year-old girl having her first orgasm."
Pardon me,
Travis?
Sir? That is so inappropriate.
Yeah.
I can't.
And I tried to make any sense out of this. I can't, obviously, but they would do a lot of this like thing where she would be like, "I'm just a little girl and I'm so horny for you."
Deeply,
and I was just like,
hate.
There's a video online. It's 2.5 hours long.
Oh, good heavens.
And they play all of these recordings. I found it.
Oh, no.
And I listened to chunks of it.
I'm so sorry for your poor ears.
Thank you. The secondhand embarrassment I felt.
I think it would actually kill me. So I'm surprised that you're like still standing in here with us.
I was just like, the look on my face, those of you who are watching on Patreon, I'm like listening to this. I'm just like, like, what am I hearing?
I wanted to die so bad when we listened to frickin' Paul Bernardo's rap.
Mm-hmm.
And that wouldn't even scratch the surface
of
the cringe I would feel.
Because Paul Bernardo wanted people to hear his rap. Travis would have never wanted anyone to hear this.
No, this was not intended for anybody else's ears.
And again, keep in mind, they played this in court, which is so fucked up because not only did Jodi have to sit there, because when they're playing it, the video I found, because again, this is all on court TV, it's her face and it's her listening to herself. and the look on her face, and she's just kind of like crying, which,
Yeah.
yeah, but the jury had to hear it.
Oh
And
god.
also, his friends
I
had to
was
hear it.
going to
His
say,
parents had to hear it. Like,
it makes me actually, yes, we've just, we're talking about this story. It's escalating. We're going down this road together.
yeah.
His family didn't know about this shit.
No.
And to have him pass away, be murdered in
Mhm.
such an incredibly brutal and tragic way, and then to have his family have to listen to that. And that's his legacy.
Yeah. And
Horrific.
to make it even worse, the media
Oh,
is
yeah.
eating this up. It's
Yeah.
on the news every night. They're talking about it every night. And meanwhile, they're trying to grieve the death of their son, the very brutal death of their son.
100%. It was somewhere around this time that Travis started a blog that he called Travis Alexander's Being Better blog, which, if any of you are interested, is still available online to read. His last post was titled, quote unquote, Why I Want to Marry a Gold Digger.
Now, that might surprise you guys a little bit.
It certainly surprised me.
It's a strange title. That being said, he didn't mean it in the general sense of the word. I can see where he was trying to go. I read the blog post and I'm like, okay, Travis, okay. In the post, he talks about his struggles with being a single Mormon man because he's 30 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how he wants to settle down and find a wife and have a family. At one point, he talks about, like, I'm almost at the age that my grandmother was when she became a grandmother, which I did the math and that concerned me on top of everything else.
It's possible,
Yeah.
but it makes me feel icky.
Yeah. So in that post, he says,
There is a phrase with a stigma attached that I find interesting: gold digger. Now, I obviously don't like the stereotypical gold digger. The phrase gold digger, oh my god, say it enough times.
he wasn't the best writer.
It has come to mean in our society a man or a woman who marries for money, usually as an easy road to material gain without any effort or productivity of their own. To reap what you have not sown is no better than a thief, mooch, or a looter. However, I couldn't think of a better phrase to describe what I desire in an eternal companion. I want someone to love me for the gold that is within me and is willing to dig with me to extract it. I heard someone once say, Speak to the king within the man, and within the man the king will appear. I see what he's saying. That's totally fine. It's kind of giving like alpha male podcast kind of vibes a little
Oh,
bit to
yeah.
me.
Well, it's kind of funny is not the best way to word this, but this is 2008.
Oh,
Right? So
so
this is a
he's ahead of his
blog.
time.
He's very ahead of his time. But he had one thing I liked was he has like it's just like an old style kind of blog, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so on the very side, he has like people whose blogs he likes, and it
Hmm.
just says "my peeps."
Oh, that
And I'm
sounds
like,
so
I know
innocent.
he was T Dog. That's what his friends called him. He was
Oh
just
my
a dude.
god.
Like he was. At the end of the day, do I agree with the stuff that he did to her? Absolutely not. He was a horny guy.
This, all due respect, and obviously he was a bit of a fuckboy.
Yeah.
It was just unfortunate that it was Jodi that he came across.
Honestly, like any other guy like this, he would have kind of sown his wild oats, so to
And
speak.
probably settled down with a
Yes.
nice Mormon girl at some point.
Yeah, exactly. He would have had his fun and then had a bunch of kids.
The ending that could have been.
It's sad. It's honestly
It
like
is.
you can say what you want to say about Travis. You say what you want to say about Jodi, but at the end of the day,
He didn't deserve
it's
that.
sad.
He does go on to describe the kind of woman that he wanted to marry, which of course upset Jodi because this woman sounded nothing like her.
And she's reading this, and if you go to the blog, you can find comments that she made. Because she
Whoa.
was reading this, she started her own blog too, which is basically just regurgitating the stuff that he said.
Of course. Okay. Yep.
So things obviously were not going well for Jodi. Her move to Mesa was an obviously poor choice for many reasons, but she also had trouble affording her new place. Eventually, she moved in with her grandparents.
This was around late May, and after the blog post came out, her attitude seemed to change drastically. She went from talking about him on a regular basis and telling everyone who would listen about how they would get married to straight up refusing to talk about him.
Things quickly went sour between the two. At one point, she threatened to release the phone sex tapes. He called her a sociopath and told her that he never wanted to see her again. It was at this time that it seems Jodi made the decision that she wanted to kill Travis.
On May 28th, there was a burglary at her grandparents' house. Among the items taken were a DVD player, $30 of Jodi's money, and her grandfather's 25 caliber pistol. Little did they know the culprit was Jodi herself. She denied that she knew what had happened.
He was like, I had no idea. My money got stolen. I don't
Yeah, it
know.
obviously wasn't me because they hit me too.
Yeah. Jodi then began seeing a guy called Ryan Burns, who she had met through prepaid legal. And the thing I want to add in, she was dating guys all throughout prepaid legal. She would like go on dates with them because she knew if she dated within those circles, Travis would hear about it.
Ah,
And she was trying to make him jealous. So
that makes
basically, she
sense.
would go on a date, make out with the guy in his car, enough where they
Mm,
would tell a friend or something like that and
totally.
have it get back to
Oh
Travis.
my God.
Jodi and Ryan made plans to meet in Salt Lake City at a conference on June 4th. She then went to visit Daryl Brewer, her middle aged and recently divorced ex boyfriend. She told him that she was planning a long road trip and she picked up 2 gas cans from him. When he asked why, she explained that she wanted to save money on fuel so she would fill them up where it was less expensive.
The reality of it was that she had full intention of driving to Mesa and killing Travis. She realized that getting gas in the area would tie her to Mesa and potentially the crime. Therefore, she planned this whole thing with the gas cans. She then called Travis and said that she just happened to be coming through Mesa. She asked if they could get together, and he said yes.
Things like this are to me why it doesn't make sense for people to say that her crime wasn't premeditated. Like that's a lot of the pro Jodi website was saying that, it was a crime of she was defending herself or it was a crime of passion or something like that.
Hmm.
She clearly planned ahead, days ahead, starting with the burglary.
Yes, absolutely. With the theft of her grandfather's pistol, like it started much longer before the day. So you couldn't even say, yeah, like, oh, it was a crime of passion. She saw him and it was instantly inflamed with rage.
Yeah.
Nah, girl, she planning this.
And the way that she's planning it, it kind of I get the vibe that she thought that she was a lot smarter than she was.
I mean, I have to say, kind of smart to think ahead of something like that because they do, right? Like they're like, "Oh yeah, you got gas at the Esso 20 minutes before we found his
Yeah.
dead body," kind of thing, right? So she's like, "Okay, I'm not going to do that. That way my credit card statements or whatever blah blah blah."
Well, it's suspicious too because Daryl was like,
Why me?
why?
Yeah.
Why are you getting gas from me? Like these gas cans."
And it's because she didn't want there to be a paper trail because
Exactly.
she couldn't purchase them herself.
No.
So she showed up at Travis's house and the two had sex for the majority of the afternoon. At 1:40 p.m., Travis took a series of nude photos of Jodi with his digital camera and she then took some of him. At approximately 5:20 p.m., Travis had a shower.
We'll never know exactly what happened that night. We can make an educated guess based on the photos. Jodi began taking photos of him in the shower. The last photo of Travis Alexander alive is one that many of you may have seen.
And it's haunting.
It is. I saw the photo before I'd heard the case.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had no clue who she was. It was just on like a list of like last photos of it was something like that,
Okay, got
right?
it.
And I
Yeah.
was just you see the photo
Mhm.
and the look in his eyes, he just looks so sad.
Yeah. And I mean, who
Well,
freaking wouldn't
yeah.
be?
I think in that moment, I don't know if she said something to him or she pulled out the knife or what it was, but I think that was the very moment that he realized,
Oh
yeah.
shit, like this is it for me. Shortly after she took this photo, Jodi Arias began stabbing Travis Alexander to death. He was stabbed at least 9 times in the upper back and once in the chest. The stab wound in his chest was so deep that she had punctured a vein going to his heart. It was at this time that he raised his hands in an attempt to defend himself and suffered multiple wounds on his hands and wrists. These wounds were so deep that the webbing between his fingers had completely split. It is likely that he got out of the shower and began coughing up blood in the sink. He ultimately collapsed in the hallway.
He was also stabbed twice in the back of the skull so hard that a part of his skull was chipped away. She then cut his throat from ear to ear, which resulted in several major arteries being severed.
She basically decapitated him, all but the spine. She had cut him so deep that the spine was exposed. In court, medical examiner Kevin Horn would say,
The jugular vein and carotid artery are both cut. It goes all the way back to the spine, 3 or 4 inches. It doesn't go through the spinal cord, but it cuts all of the soft tissue and structure in front of the neck. He's going to lose consciousness within seconds and die a few minutes later. He could get up and walk a couple of feet, move, and then collapse. If this was the only injury, he'd probably die in a few minutes.
but these would not be the only injuries he would sustain. Among the 27 stab wounds, he also sustained a gunshot wound to the head.
Jodi dragged him to the shower and washed off as much blood as she could. She then deleted the photos from the camera. In a further attempt to clean the scene, she put the towels and sheets she had used to clean the blood into the washing machine along with the digital camera and left with the murder weapons. She then called Ryan Burns and told him she was on her way to his house.
And that is where we will pick up next week.
Oh.
This poor man.
Yeah, honestly.
That's really all I have to say. Like, he fucking didn't deserve that. And I mentioned it in episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard what she did to him, literally described as overkill.
Yeah.
Again, women tend not to be this vicious with their murders. And the fact she stabbed him 27 times damn near took his head off.
Yeah.
And that is not an easy feat.
No.
Stabbing someone that many times, it takes a lot of energy, first of all. And a lot of the times, the attacker ends up actually stabbing themselves or causing sort of collateral damage on themselves because it's so frenzied. And then to not only stab him that many times, which is vicious in and of itself, to cut his throat and then shoot him in the head. Unbelievable.
I had heard about, what she had done, but you really see it in the photos from the crime scene. It is vicious. And one of the things that's really sitting with me is the wounds on his hands.
Oh.
He tried so hard to fight back. And the fact that she was so enraged that she couldn't be stopped by a man who was bigger than her says so much. Because again, the pro Jodi supporters, a lot of them saying, we'll get into this next week, this was self-defense.
I'm sorry, sweetie.
No.
27 stab wounds alone, not self-defense.
No.
And then all the other shit too.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It's almost, to me, and maybe a lot of other killers that are like frenzied like this are somewhat in the same, where they start out very angry, very frenzied, and then at some point they surely have to kind of come down from that initial like rush.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, well, I've already stabbed him 27 times. What else can we do? Like I said, it takes time and energy to really stab someone that many times. I can't imagine the adrenaline lasts for that long.
No, and she couldn't leave him alive, obviously.
No.
We'll talk more about it next week, but she would try to pin this on a robbery gone wrong.
Come on.
Right? And that's why she's, going off to Salt Lake City to visit her new beau. But like, it's just vicious. It's so sad. This woman belongs in jail for the rest of her life. And despite the fact that she has $105,000 being fundraised for her appeals, I hope she stays there for the rest of her life and she doesn't somehow get out.
I really hope not, because this is not a woman who is stable enough to be out amongst the public. Thank you very much.
I have to say, we had this conversation on our Facebook page today with a few people that she's making bank in jail.
Which I don't know if she actually physically has access to at this time.
A lot of it's going into her commissary.
God damn it. That's a loophole that I kind of learned about very recently. And as much as, they're not getting, straight up cash, there's not going to be some big payout waiting for them. Hopefully she never gets out anyway.
Yeah.
But their lives are certainly made easier by contributions to their commissary fund.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she has everything she needs in jail, essentially, other than her freedom.
Catherine Knight, hello.
Yep.
I knew this is a story that has a lot to tell. I'm a little bit surprised that we're going into part 3.
Part 3, man, the trial.
I mean,
it is one hell of a trial. And I honestly thought this was going to be a 2-parter, but there is so much to this trial. We don't normally talk about trials in, kind of full detail, and we won't go into complete detail because it was a very long one. But there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about how she was caught, because that's interesting.
Yes, yeah.
We're going to talk about the trial itself, the sentencing, the reaction of the public, and then we're going to chat about what she's up to now.
Yeah, we don't often chat about what they're up to now because a lot of the times they've already passed away in jail.
Yeah, no, she is
She's living.
She's living.
Anywho, we are at that time in the episode, the end of the episode, where we, of course, thank our beautiful and lovely and generous patrons over on Patreon. Y'all are the tittycitythebomb.com.
Sign up for our Patreon. All of the August proceeds are going towards the Kristen French Child Advocacy Center Niagara. So you got a couple days to sign up for that. We're going to be donating all the funds. There is a free tier on Patreon. You can see what we're going to talk about before anybody else. You can get a week-long trial to check out the videos and the content that we post. We have a Discord. It's a fun place to be.
It is. So a humongous thank you, as always, to Steven Centauri, Mayhem Mudkip, Lisa, Nova, Kevinus Musicus, Judy, Hillary, Brian, Bob, and Atlantean Jedi.
Whoop whoop.
Woohoo! And also, if you're listening on YouTube, a big hello,
Hello,
especially
YouTube.
if you're listening on Saturday at a premiere and you're in the chat right now. Hello.
Join us in the chat. It is a good time.
It is.
I love getting to witness people's reactions as they hear. It's probably one of my favorite things because there's so many parts where like I know what my reaction was when I heard that fact. I can see your reaction, but then when everyone else has the same reaction, I'm like, you get us.
You get us.
Yeah, we got you.
So yeah, come check out the YouTube on Saturdays at noon Mountain Standard Time. We'll be there hanging out. And of course, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, basically every podcast platform there is, I'm pretty sure.
We're on Amazon Podcasts. We're on Samsung Podcasts. We're on something called Podbean. What up, Podbean?
Hey, Podbean.
Yeah, we're on. Did we say Apple?
Maybe.
We're you know what? If you can put a podcast on it, we're fucking there. We're on Audible. We're on Pandora.
Yeah. And honestly, if you are listening to, I guess you're not listening to us on something that we're not on. If you listen to your podcast on a different platform and we're not on it, please let us know because we will see about arranging that.
We will. We absolutely will. We are everywhere.
Absolutely.
Make sure you follow us on the social media stuff: TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah, Dina posts the little clips and reels on the TikToks and the YouTube shorts and the reels.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Share it with your friends. Leave us a comment. Show us some love. It means a lot. And don't forget, once again, twitch.tv/The Grim Curriculum. Follow us. We are going to be announcing our first ever live stream, probably on Extra Credit this week.
Yeah, why not?
Let's do it.
It's coming up fast, coming up in September, and we're basically in September right now.
Yeah.
So
we talked about doing this in June, and we were like, let's do September. And I was like, I don't want to wait that long. And then I blinked, and it was September.
And it's September.
Yeah.
The kids are back at school.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I'm excited. I have a bunch of games I have people telling me that we should play. We're also going to do some commentary type stuff.
Yeah, maybe some reactions, whatever. Yeah. Honestly, it's going to be just kind of a place for us to really just like hang out with you guys and kind of do whatever we want to do. I mean, we usually march to the beat of our own drum anyway. So this is just another outlet for that.
Yeah. And you know what? For the most part, it's going to be the two of us together. Sometimes if, one of us is chilling and we're feeling a little social, we might just go live on our own. We don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. So find out with us.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been The Grim Curriculum. And since the new Alien movie came out, I thought we could have an Alien movie fact today.
It was so good.
And you guys are probably big fans of the Alien series here, but so you maybe already know this, but this is a fun one. Sigourney Weaver refused to shave her pubes in Alien 1, and they had to spend something like 10 grand having them CGI out her pubes in the beginning.
Sigourney.
She refused. Hell yeah, girl power.
I love it.
You let that bush go.
Bye.
Yeah, there's like an interview with Ridley Scott being like, she wouldn't shave her fucking minge and we had to pay for it to be chopped out. Oh my God. And I'm like, fuck yes, Sigourney Weaver.